So the Pulsar X2 Wireless is finally here and I have the mini version. It's Pulsar's first symmetrical mouse and it reminds me quite a bit of the Zowie S2 and the Fnatic Bolt. But the key here is that it is smaller than either one of those. This is a pre-production unit, so I won't talk too much about the click feel, the side buttons, the scroll wheel, but I can mention that the side buttons have Huano whites and they feel crispy and tactile and actually really nice. There is a little bit of separation here between the buttons and the buttons actually look quite a bit like the super light side buttons, but they feel a lot better. The main mouse buttons are using the LethalGamingGear 8.0s and the click feel is actually extremely light. The clicks are not super consistent, so when I click the button from the middle here, the clicks are quite snappy, tactile and nice, but when clicking the buttons from the front there is some pre-travel and some post-travel which doesn't really normally bother me, but because the clicks are so light, they feel quite cheap when click from the front. My right click actually feels quite a bit better than my left click, but there is still quite a bit of pre-travel. Overall, I'm extremely happy that they made these clicks lighter than they were with the X-Lite version 2, but these could feel a little bit more premium in my opinion. But again, it's a pre-production sample, so let's see what changes with the production units. The buttons also have quite nice comfort grooves. One nice addition is also the DPI button on the bottom of the mouse and the DPI indicator is on the side. The build quality is very good on the X2 Mini, there is only a limited amount of side flex and there is no creaking whatsoever. There is some rattle, but again, it's a pre-production sample, so let's not take this too seriously. And either way, the rattle doesn't happen in real use. In regards to the surface, I'm not actually quite sure if it's coated or not, but it does feel nice and smooth, decently grippy as well, but not as good as the Zowie coating or the Superlight coating for me. The mouse feet design is pretty much the same as on the X-Lite, but the back skate seems a little bit more curved on the X2. So sadly you can't use the glass skates from the X-Lite Wireless. This applies to both the X2 and the X2 Mini. But the feet do feel very nice, and the glide is very good, for example on the LethalGamingGear Saturn Pro. It of course has the new 3395 sensor and the performance should be very good, but in practice you shouldn't feel much difference to previous Pulsar mice because the performance was already exceptional with these. The weight on the mouse is 53 grams and the weight balancing is very well done, doesn't matter what kind of grip style you have, and because of the shape and the light weight, the X2 Mini actually feels very good on fingertip grip as well. The X2 Mini of course does not feel quite as light as the Starlight 12, but it feels very light either way. The price is going to be $95 straight from Pulsar, but it's 110 euros from Max Gaming, so the bang for buck isn't quite as good as it was on the X-Lite Wireless, and I would hope that for this price we would have a more premium feeling coating on the mouse. But as every gaming mouse seems to be extremely expensive these days, I would say the bang for buck is still good. Let's talk shape a little bit. That the X2 was actually thought to be similar to the XM1, but the Pulsar X2 Mini is of course quite a bit smaller and I would not say that the shape is that similar. Although the hump design is quite similar, the back of the mouse is much wider on the XM1. And of course the X2 Mini is quite a bit shorter than the XM1. The hump is towards the back of the mouse and then it quite gradually slopes down towards the front, and the front of the mouse is somewhat low profile. But there is still more than enough room on the front of the mouse to my pinky and my ring finger. The X2 Mini is somewhat thin and it does flare out a little bit towards the back and the front, but as it doesn't flare out that much towards the back and the back isn't wide at all, it's quite easy to drive deep towards your palm. The hump actually reminds me quite a bit of what the Fnatic Bolt has, but otherwise the shape isn't that similar. Bolt flares out much more towards the front of the mouse and it overall feels larger than the X2 Mini. There has been a lot of talk about the Superlight and the X2 and how similar are these actually to each other. But the only two things on the X2 Mini that remind me of the Superlight are the vertically flat sides and also the curvature, which is very minimal on both. The X2 Mini and the S2C are actually quite similar. I would say the X2 Mini would be quite close to something that S3 would be, but I think the S3 would have a little bit more pronounced and wider hump. The front curvature on the right side is also quite a bit different on the S2 and the X2, as the S2 sides are not as flat as on the X2 Mini. And because the S2 is longer, it's better for relaxed claw on my 19x10cm hands. If I want to relaxed claw, the X2 Mini is on the verge of being too small, but for aggressive claw it feels very good. Comparing the X2 Mini and the Starlight Valve Small, to my surprise, these are pretty much the same size. The X2 Mini is just a little bit wider all over, and it also has that hump more towards the back of the mouse. Whereas the Starlight Valve pretty much has no hump whatsoever, and the highest point of the mouse is in the middle. I would say that if you would want to try something similar to what the Zowie S3 could be, or a Starlight 12 that would be a little bit wider and would actually have a hump, get the X2 Mini and try it out. Just looking at the dimensions of the X2 Mini and the medium, I personally think that the medium is going to be a better fit for me. The difference in the width is very small and the Mini is actually quite a bit shorter, and for my hand size I feel that the scale might be a little bit skewed. I have some thoughts on what I would like to change from the S2 Mini shape, but I will talk more about those in my full review. Thank you so much for watching. Check out my Zowie S2 C review right here and my Starlight Valve Small review right here. The Pulsar X2 Mini is in my opinion something between those. If you enjoyed the video, hit the like button. If you enjoy my content, hit that subscribe button, and see you in the next one.